I wasted years fighting a battle no one could see. From the outside, everything looked normal. I smiled, I worked, I made plans. But inside my mind, there was a prison. Every decision became a debate. Every opportunity became a risk. Every dream turned into another question. And here's what scares me the most. I truly believed I was being careful. I thought I was preparing for success. I didn't realize I was simply delaying my life. If you've ever felt like your own thoughts are holding you hostage, don't look away. What changed everything for me wasn't more motivation. It was one simple realization that shattered years of excuses. Think about this for a second. Have you ever stood at the edge of a decision for so long that the opportunity disappeared before you even made up your mind? Maybe it was a business idea. Maybe it was changing careers. Maybe it was talking to someone you cared about. Maybe it was simply deciding to become healthier. You didn't fail because you lacked talent. You failed because you never truly started. That's a painful truth, but painful truths have the power to set us free. For years, I believed I needed more confidence before taking action. I kept telling myself that once I felt ready, everything would fall into place. Tomorrow became next week. Next week became next month. Before I knew it, years had quietly slipped away. Time didn't stop because I was uncertain. The world didn't wait for me to figure everything out. Life kept moving, with or without my permission. Here's something nobody tells you. Your mind can become addicted to thinking. It convinces you that every extra hour of planning is productive. It whispers that one more book, one more video, one more strategy will finally give you the certainty you've been searching for. But certainty is a moving target. The closer you think you are, the farther it seems to get. Imagine standing at the edge of a swimming pool on a hot summer day. You tell yourself the water looks cold. You wonder how deep it is. You spend 10 minutes thinking, then 30 minutes, then an hour. Meanwhile, someone else simply jumps in. At first they gasp because it's cold, then they smile. 5 minutes later, they're enjoying the water while you're still standing on the edge, analyzing every possible outcome. Who learned more, the one who thought or the one who acted? Life works the same way. One decision can teach you more than 1,000 hours of overthinking. Experience is a better teacher than imagination. Yet most people choose imagination because it feels safe. The strange part is that safety often becomes the biggest danger of all. Let me ask you something. What if the life you're dreaming about isn't waiting for you to become smarter? What if it's waiting for you to become brave enough to begin? That's uncomfortable, isn't it? Because beginning means accepting that you won't have all the answers. Beginning means risking mistakes. Beginning means people might judge you, and for many of us, that fear feels unbearable. We'd rather remain stuck than risk looking foolish. But here's what I eventually realized. Looking foolish for a few moments is far less expensive than wasting years doing nothing. I used to believe successful people were fearless. I imagined they woke up every morning overflowing with confidence. I thought they possessed some secret quality that ordinary people lacked. Then I started paying closer attention. The people who built great businesses weren't fearless. The people who changed their lives weren't fearless. The people who achieved extraordinary things weren't fearless. They simply refused to let fear make their decisions. There's an enormous difference. Fear is natural. It's part of being human. The problem begins when fear becomes the manager of your life. Once fear starts making decisions, your future starts shrinking. Every year looks exactly like the last because your comfort zone quietly becomes your entire world. Think about the last 5 years. Have they truly transformed you, or have they simply repeated themselves with different dates on the calendar? That question hit me like a punch in the stomach. I realized I wasn't growing anymore. I wasn't living intentionally. I was surviving comfortably. There's a huge difference between surviving and living. Survival keeps you safe. Living requires movement. Living requires risk. Living demands that you step into situations where success isn't guaranteed. Most people misunderstand success. They think it's a destination. They picture a big house, financial freedom, recognition, or achievements. But success begins long before any of those things appear. Success begins the moment you become the kind of person who consistently does what needs to be done, even when it's uncomfortable. Everything changes when your focus shifts from outcomes to habits. Instead of asking, what if I fail? Ask, who do I become if I keep showing up? That single question transformed how I looked at every challenge. Because failure suddenly wasn't the opposite of success anymore. Doing nothing was. Every mistake became information. Every setback became education. Every difficult day became proof that I was finally moving instead of standing still. And something remarkable happened. The more I acted, the quieter my mind became. Not because all my problems disappeared, but because action gave my mind evidence that I could handle uncertainty. Confidence didn't arrive before action. Confidence arrived because of action. That's the order most people get wrong. They wait for confidence before taking the first step. In reality, confidence is the reward for taking many imperfect steps. Look around at almost everything valuable in life. Strong relationships require uncomfortable conversations. Healthy bodies require difficult workouts. Financial freedom requires disciplined choices. Meaningful careers require years of consistent effort. None of these begin with certainty. They begin with commitment. Commitment is powerful because it removes endless negotiation with yourself. Once you've committed, your energy no longer goes into deciding whether to act. It goes into acting. That simple shift frees an incredible amount of mental energy. Here's another surprising truth. Your biggest competition isn't another person. It's yesterday's version of yourself. Most people spend their lives comparing themselves to others. They compare incomes, appearances, followers, achievements, and possessions. But comparison creates distraction. Growth happens when your attention returns to your own path. Ask yourself this: am I becoming stronger than I was 6 months ago? Am I thinking better than I was last year? Am I making decisions faster than I used to? Those are the questions that matter, because real progress is deeply personal. No one else can build your discipline. No one else can create your future. No one else can rescue you from your own excuses. That realization can feel heavy at first, but it's also incredibly freeing, because if your life is your responsibility, then your future is also within your influence. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need every answer. You only need the willingness to move. The truth is, life doesn't reward the person who thinks the longest. It rewards the person who learns, adapts, and keeps going. The years I spent trapped inside my own mind taught me one unforgettable lesson. The door to the prison was never locked. I was simply too afraid to turn the handle the moment I finally did. I discovered something I wish I had understood much earlier. The world doesn't change because you think differently. The world changes because one ordinary decision becomes the beginning of an entirely different life. And the next realization made that lesson even more powerful. The next realization didn't arrive during a perfect moment. It didn't happen when everything was finally under control. It came in the middle of an ordinary day, and that's what made it so powerful. I suddenly understood that my circumstances weren't creating my mindset. My mindset was creating the way I experienced my circumstances. The moment that truth settled in, I stopped asking, why is this happening to me? And started asking, what can I do with what I have? That one question changed everything. Think about two people standing in the same storm. One spends the entire time complaining about the rain. The other starts looking for shelter, gathering resources and planning the next move. The storm is the same. The difference is the response. Life rarely gives us complete control over events, but it always gives us control over our response. Most people underestimate the power of that choice. We often believe our emotions are automatic. We say, I can't help feeling this way. But while feelings may arrive uninvited, we decide how long they stay. We decide whether they become excuses or fuel. We decide whether they stop us or strengthen us. For years, I believed my biggest obstacle was a lack of opportunity. I blamed my background. I blamed my finances. I blamed timing. I blamed people who didn't support me. Every excuse felt reasonable. Every explanation sounded convincing. But deep down, something didn't add up. Why were people with fewer advantages succeeding? Why were people facing even greater struggles finding a way forward? The answer wasn't luck. It wasn't magic. It was ownership. The moment you stop blaming, you start building. That sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest decisions a person can make. Blame feels comfortable because it protects the ego. If everything is someone else's fault, then you never have to change. But comfort has a hidden price. Every excuse you accept today quietly steals a piece of your tomorrow. Ask yourself something uncomfortable. If nothing changes over the next 5 years, who is responsible? That's not meant to create guilt. It's meant to create power. Because responsibility isn't punishment. Responsibility is permission. It's permission to stop waiting for someone else to rescue you. Here's something I discovered that surprised me. The successful people I admired weren't obsessed with finding easier paths. They were obsessed with becoming stronger. That's a completely different way of thinking. Instead of asking, how do I avoid problems? They asked, how do I become the kind of person who can solve bigger problems? That question changes your identity. Imagine lifting weights for the first time. The weights feel heavy, your muscles shake, you struggle. If you quit because it's uncomfortable, you'll stay weak. But if you keep showing up, something incredible happens. The weight doesn't get lighter, you get stronger. Life works exactly the same way. The challenges that once overwhelmed you eventually become ordinary. Not because life became easier, but because you became better. That's why growth often feels painful. You're leaving behind an older version of yourself. Most people never realize they're negotiating with themselves every single day. I'll start on Monday. I'll wait until I have more money. I'll do it when I'm more confident. I'll begin after things calm down. But here's the truth. Life rarely calms down. There will always be another challenge, another bill, another distraction, another reason to wait. If you build the habit of waiting for perfect conditions, you'll spend your entire life preparing instead of living. Have you noticed how quickly one excuse becomes 10? I don't have time. I don't have experience. I'm too old. I'm too young. What if people laugh? What if I fail? The mind is incredibly creative when it comes to protecting comfort, but here's the strange part. The same creativity that invents excuses can also invent solutions. The difference lies in the questions you ask. Instead of asking, why can't I? Ask, how can I? One question closes the door, the other opens it. Your brain immediately begins searching for answers based on the question you give it. Feed it limiting questions, and you'll get limiting answers. Feed it empowering questions, and suddenly possibilities appear that were invisible before. Have you ever bought a new car and then started seeing that same model everywhere? The cars were always there, you just weren't looking for them. Opportunities work the same way. When your focus changes, your world changes. That's why attitude isn't just about feeling positive. It's about training your mind to notice possibilities instead of obstacles. Now, don't misunderstand this. Positive thinking alone doesn't change your life. Action does. A positive attitude without action is nothing more than wishful thinking. But action driven by a strong mindset becomes incredibly powerful. Think about a farmer. The farmer doesn't wake up expecting crops to appear overnight. Seeds are planted, the soil is prepared, water is given consistently, days pass with no visible results. Does the farmer quit after 1 week? Of course not. Because the farmer understands something many people forget. Growth happens beneath the surface long before it becomes visible. Your goals work exactly the same way. There will be days when it feels like nothing is happening. You'll wonder if the effort is worth it. You'll question yourself. You'll feel tempted to quit. That's the moment that separates people who merely dream from people who achieve. Consistency is rarely exciting. It's often boring. It's repetitive. It's quiet. But those quiet days create extraordinary results. Most people celebrate dramatic moments. The truth is that dramatic moments are usually built on thousands of ordinary decisions nobody ever sees. One workout doesn't transform your body. One book doesn't transform your mind. One conversation doesn't transform your relationships. But repeated consistently over months and years, everything changes. That's why discipline is more valuable than motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline stays. Motivation says, I feel like doing it. Discipline says, I'll do it anyway. And that's where freedom begins. Ironically, the people with the most freedom often have the strongest discipline. They control their habits instead of letting habits control them. They control their schedule instead of reacting to every distraction. They make decisions based on long-term goals rather than short-term emotions. That doesn't make them perfect, it makes them intentional. Here's another truth that completely changed my perspective. Success doesn't ask who deserves it. Success asks who prepared for it. Imagine opportunity knocking on your door tomorrow. Would your current habits be ready? Would your skills be ready? Would your mindset be ready? Or would you spend the next 6 months wishing you had prepared sooner? Opportunity often arrives without warning. Preparation is your responsibility. That's why every ordinary day matters. Every book you read, every skill you practice, every promise you keep to yourself, every hour you invest instead of waste. None of it feels dramatic in the moment. But together, those small choices quietly build a life that most people assume happened overnight. There are no overnight successes. Only years of unseen preparation. And once I accepted that, something incredible happened. I stopped chasing quick results. I started focusing on daily progress. Some days the progress was tiny, some days it felt invisible. But tiny progress still moves you forward. Standing still never does. The greatest trap isn't failure. The greatest trap is believing that tomorrow will automatically be different while continuing to make the same choices today. Tomorrow doesn't create a new life. Today's decisions do. That realization forced me to look in the mirror with complete honesty. The person staring back wasn't trapped because life was unfair. He was trapped because he had spent too long hoping circumstances would change before he changed himself. The moment I accepted that truth, I discovered another lesson, one even more powerful than anything I had learned before. Because changing your thoughts is important, changing your actions is essential, but changing your identity, that's where real transformation begins. Real transformation doesn't begin when your bank account grows. It doesn't begin when people finally recognize your talent. It doesn't begin when life becomes easier. It begins the moment you stop asking, what do I need to have, and start asking, who do I need to become? That question separates people who chase success from people who eventually attract it. Because everything you truly want is connected to the person you're becoming, not just the things you're doing. For a long time, I believed changing my habits would automatically change my life, so I tried waking up earlier. I made schedules, I bought notebooks, I downloaded productivity apps. For a few days, everything felt exciting. Then slowly, I returned to the same old patterns. Have you ever noticed that? You promise yourself, this time will be different. A week later, you're back where you started. It isn't because you're weak. It isn't because you lack discipline. It's because your habits are trying to grow inside an identity that hasn't changed yet. Imagine someone who constantly says, I'm just a lazy person. Even if they exercise for a week, what happens the first time they miss a workout? They immediately return to the old story. See? I knew I couldn't stay consistent. Now imagine someone who says, I'm becoming a disciplined person. Missing one workout doesn't destroy their identity. They simply get back to work because that's who they're becoming. The story you tell yourself matters more than you think. Every day, whether you realize it or not, you're having conversations inside your own mind. I'm not smart enough. I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm unlucky. I never finish anything. Repeat those thoughts often enough, and they stop feeling like opinions. They become beliefs, and beliefs quietly shape behavior. Here's something powerful. Your brain doesn't spend much time arguing with the story you repeat the most. If you constantly tell yourself you're incapable, your actions begin to match that belief. But if you start telling yourself that you're learning, improving, and growing, your actions slowly begin to follow that story instead. This isn't pretending. It's choosing a direction. Think about a pilot flying across the ocean. The airplane doesn't stay perfectly on course every second. Wind pushes it left. Turbulence pushes it right. Yet the pilot keeps making small corrections until the destination is reached. Success works exactly the same way. You don't need perfect days. You need consistent corrections. One bad morning doesn't ruin your future. One mistake doesn't erase your progress. One failure doesn't define your identity. The only thing that truly keeps people stuck is deciding that one setback means the journey is over. Have you ever watched a child learning to walk? They fall again and again and again. No one applauds the fall. Everyone celebrates the fact that they keep getting back up. Somewhere along the way, adults forget this lesson. We begin expecting perfection from ourselves. If the first business struggles, we assume we're not entrepreneurs. If the first speech isn't perfect, we assume we're not speakers. If the first investment loses money, we assume we're bad with finances. But mastery has never worked that way. Every expert was once a beginner who refused to quit. That's what separates ordinary lives from extraordinary ones. Not talent, persistence. The world often rewards consistency long before it rewards brilliance. Think about water dripping onto a rock. 1 drop changes nothing. 10 drops change nothing. 1,000 drops seem meaningless, but after enough time, even solid stone begins to change. Small actions possess enormous power when repeated long enough. Never underestimate today's effort simply because today's results are invisible. Every meaningful achievement is built quietly before it's noticed publicly. People see the harvest. They rarely see the seasons of planting. They celebrate the victory. They don't witness the mornings when no one was watching. That's another lesson I wish I had understood earlier. Stop trying to impress people. Start trying to improve yourself. The strange thing is, when you become obsessed with growth instead of approval, you often earn the respect you were chasing all along. Approval is unpredictable. Growth is within your control. Ask yourself honestly, how much of your life is spent worrying about what other people think? It's exhausting, isn't it? You hesitate before speaking. You hesitate before starting. You hesitate before trying something new. Not because it's impossible, because someone might judge you. Here's the truth. People are usually thinking about themselves far more than they're thinking about you. And even if someone criticizes you, what changes? Nothing. Your dream still belongs to you. Your future still depends on your choices. Their opinion cannot build your life. Only your actions can. One of the biggest shifts I ever made was learning to separate noise from direction. Noise is everywhere: negative news, complaints, arguments, endless opinions, distractions disguised as entertainment. If you feed your mind with noise every day, don't be surprised when your thoughts become noisy too. Your mind is like a garden. Whatever you water grows. Water fear and fear grows. Water doubt and doubt grows. Water courage, learning, gratitude, and discipline, and those qualities begin to grow instead. Be careful about what enters your mind. Not everything deserves your attention. Attention is one of your greatest assets. Where attention goes, energy follows. Where energy goes, results eventually appear. That's why successful people protect their focus. They understand that saying yes to everything means saying no to what matters most. Have you noticed how easy it is to stay busy without making progress? You answer emails, you scroll through your phone, you watch another video, you organize your desk. By the end of the day, you're exhausted. But ask yourself one question. Did I move closer to the life I want? Being busy and being productive are not the same thing. Movement isn't always progress. A rocking chair moves constantly, yet it never goes anywhere. Many people live exactly like that, always moving, rarely advancing. Progress requires intention. Every morning gives you a choice. You can spend the day reacting, or you can spend the day creating. Those are completely different lives. Creators decide their priorities before distractions decide for them. Reactors wait for the world to tell them what deserves their attention. One path builds purpose, the other builds frustration. And here's another truth that changed everything for me. Your future isn't built during your best days. It's built during your ordinary ones. Anyone can stay committed when they're excited. Anyone can work hard when everything is going well. Character is revealed when motivation disappears. Will you still show up? Will you still keep your promises? Will you still do the work nobody applauds? That's where transformation lives, not in dramatic moments, but in quiet decisions repeated over and over again. Imagine putting one brick in place every single day. One brick seems insignificant. You could even laugh at how little progress you've made. But after enough days, a wall appears. Keep going. Eventually, there's an entire house. Life is built exactly like that. One conversation, one workout, one chapter, one decision, one promise kept, one habit repeated. The results may seem invisible today, but invisible progress is still progress. Never confuse slow growth with no growth. Bamboo spends years developing underground before breaking through the surface. Then, in a remarkably short period, it rises dramatically. People who only see the breakthrough think it happened overnight. They never saw the roots. Your roots are being built every time you choose discipline over excuses. Every time you choose learning over complaining. Every time you choose action over fear. Those invisible moments become visible success. And then I realized one final lesson that tied everything together. Success isn't simply about reaching a destination. It's about becoming someone who can continue growing long after the destination has been reached. That final realization changed the way I looked at every challenge, every setback, and every opportunity, and it became the foundation for a life I once believed was impossible. The final realization was the one I had been searching for all along. It wasn't another strategy. It wasn't another shortcut. It wasn't another secret hidden inside a book or a seminar. It was something much simpler, and because it was simple, I ignored it for years. Success is not an event. It's a direction. The moment I understood that, I stopped measuring my life by what I had achieved and started measuring it by who I was becoming every single day. For years, I believed happiness lived somewhere in the future. I'll be happy when I make more money. I'll be happy when I have more time. I'll be happy when people recognize me. But every time I reached a goal, another one appeared. The finish line kept moving. I realized I had built a habit of postponing my own happiness. Have you ever done that? You tell yourself life will finally begin after one more promotion, one more opportunity, one more breakthrough. Then years pass. You accomplish things you once dreamed about, yet somehow they don't feel as satisfying as you imagined. Why? Because achievement without growth leaves an empty feeling. Real fulfillment comes from becoming stronger, wiser, kinder, and more disciplined throughout the journey. The destination is exciting, the journey changes you, and that's what truly matters. One day I looked back at the years I had spent trapped inside my own thoughts. At first I felt regret. I wondered how different my life could have been if I had understood these lessons earlier. Then another thought replaced that regret. Every mistake had taught me something. Every failure had built resilience. Every setback had revealed a weakness I needed to strengthen. Without those experiences, I wouldn't have become the person capable of recognizing the opportunity standing in front of me today. Suddenly, my past no longer looked like wasted time. It looked like preparation. That doesn't mean you should celebrate poor decisions. It means you should never allow yesterday to steal tomorrow. You cannot rewrite the past, but you can rewrite the meaning you give it. Your past can become a prison, or it can become a classroom. The choice belongs to you. Think about that for a moment. Some people spend decades carrying the weight of one mistake. Others use that same mistake as the reason they become extraordinary. The difference isn't what happened. The difference is what they decided to believe afterward. That's why your future is never created by your circumstances alone. It's created by your interpretation of those circumstances. Life asks difficult questions. Disappointment asks, will you quit? Failure asks, will you learn? Success asks, will you stay humble? Adversity asks, who are you when things don't go your way? Your answers shape your destiny. Here's something else I learned. Gratitude is far more powerful than most people realize. Not because it magically removes problems, but because it changes your focus. When you constantly focus on what you lack, you'll always feel behind. When you begin appreciating what you already have, your mind becomes calmer, clearer, and stronger. Gratitude doesn't make you less ambitious. It makes your ambition healthier. You stop chasing success because you feel empty. You begin pursuing excellence because you're already grateful for the opportunity to grow. There's a massive difference. One is driven by fear. The other is driven by purpose. Purpose has a remarkable ability to carry you through difficult seasons. When your reason is strong enough, temporary discomfort loses much of its power. That's why people with a clear purpose often accomplish things that seem impossible. They don't have fewer obstacles. They simply have stronger reasons to keep moving. So ask yourself this: why do you want to succeed? Is it to prove someone wrong? Is it to impress people? Or is it because you know you're capable of becoming more than you are today? The answer matters. Because temporary motivation fades, purpose endures. Another lesson completely transformed my thinking. Success leaves clues. Every person who has built a meaningful life has one thing in common. They became students long before they became masters. They remained curious. They asked better questions. They listened more than they talked. They learned from both victories and failures. The moment you believe you know everything is the moment you stop growing. Growth requires humility. Humility keeps your mind open. An open mind keeps your future expanding. Never stop learning, never stop improving, never stop asking yourself how you can become a better version of the person you were yesterday. Remember, no one can live your life for you. People can encourage you, people can teach you, people can inspire you, but nobody can make your decisions. Nobody can build your habits. Nobody can think your thoughts. Nobody can walk your path. That responsibility belongs entirely to you. At first, that may sound overwhelming, but it's actually the most liberating truth you'll ever hear. Because if your future depends on your daily choices, then every sunrise brings another opportunity to change direction. You are never completely stuck. As long as you're breathing, you have the ability to make one better decision, and then another, and another. Small choices create big lives. One page read today becomes knowledge next year. One healthy meal becomes a healthier body. One courageous conversation repairs a relationship. 1 hour invested in learning becomes a valuable skill. One disciplined decision repeated every day becomes an entirely different future. Never underestimate the power of ordinary actions. Extraordinary lives are usually built through ordinary disciplines practiced consistently. People often ask what the secret to success is. Maybe they're hoping for one magical sentence, one revolutionary idea, one shortcut that changes everything overnight. But here's the truth. The secret isn't hidden. It's ignored. Show up when you don't feel like it. Keep learning when progress seems slow. Stay humble when success arrives. Or stay grateful during every season. Keep your promises to yourself. Protect your time. Guard your thoughts. Take responsibility for your choices. And refuse to let fear make your decisions. Do those things long enough and your life begins changing in ways you can't even imagine. One day you'll wake up and realize something incredible. The person who once doubted everything has become someone others look to for strength. The person who once feared every decision now moves with confidence. Not because life became easier, but because you became stronger. Think back to the beginning of this journey. The years spent trapped inside your own head. The endless overthinking. The excuses, the waiting, the fear. Now imagine closing that chapter forever. Imagine becoming the person who acts instead of hesitates, who learns instead of complains, or who builds instead of blames, who grows instead of settles. That person already exists, not somewhere in the future, inside you. Waiting for one decision. Because everything changes the moment you stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what if this is the day my life begins? The opportunity is here. The time is now. Not next Monday, not next month, not next year, today. Your future is quietly watching the decision you make after this moment. Will you return to the habits that kept you trapped? Or will today become the day you finally choose growth over comfort, action over excuses, discipline over distraction, and purpose over fear? The answer isn't hidden in another book. It isn't waiting in another motivational speech. It isn't locked inside someone else's success story. It's waiting in the next choice you make. Years from now, you'll tell yourself one of two stories. Either you'll say, I wish I had started sooner. Or you'll smile and say, everything changed the day I finally decided to begin. Choose wisely, because the life you've imagined has been waiting for one thing all along. Not perfect timing, not perfect conditions, just your decision to take the first step. If this message challenged the way you think, don't let it become another video you simply watched. Let it become the moment you finally acted. Share it with someone who needs this reminder, and if you're committed to becoming stronger, wiser, and more intentional every day, stay connected. Your next chapter doesn't begin someday. It begins